YouTube, another day, another demo. Today we look at Kyojin, the newest member of Vitaly, fitting into the biggest, heaviest, oldest shoes. RpK. Can he stand the test of time? But more importantly, can he stand the test of tenure and playing on this team as the new anchor of Team Vitaly? That's the question we seek to explore today. We look at his very first game on the team with this new roster, and it's almost going to be an unlucky or bad, or in a situation where he went 10 and 19. Poor Kyojin. Jason Win Van must be a little bit nervous to get 41 ADR and have a highlight like this. I watched about a minute and a half of this frag movie, and I had to stop. It was too nasty.
Nice! PG, gros! Dégage!
C'est un monstre!
Mais comment il est arrivé là?
Moi aussi, juste un pote.
Wesh.
1v1.
Allô?
1v1. Mais non!
Wesh, c'est passé quoi, mon ref?
Arrête, casse-toi, tu disconnecte.
Eh ouais, mais trop de temps.
Après la bait.
Prends tes fauches, mec.
Oh, man,
Il a accroché en haut. Non, mais enfin, au bout d'un moment.
And we gotta stop. I mean, if you want to watch the rest of this... Okay, let's watch one more. I can't... Why? I can't... Okay, let's watch one. A little bit more here.
Ils sont beaucoup là. Encore un clever. Et un spawn à la haut.
Oh là là. Oh là là là. Oh là là.
Kyojin, Mr. Once-in-a-Lifetime Clips Daily, does this for 8.5 minutes on top of the hundreds of other frag movies he has on YouTube. He is nuts. On paper. Welcome to Pro CS, Kyojin. It's a little bit of a different game. Now, this isn't the map to showcase, you know, your insane mechanical skill, even though he had a clip there. At a pro level, of course, there's a lot more that goes into it. And it doesn't mean that because we had this performance, that next game it's going to be the same and that he doesn't have what it takes. This is a good indicator of how much raw skill this guy has. What matters from this point on is how good his communication is. Can he sing and dance, right? Can he frag and also calm? His calms are going to be huge. And then how much preparation is he going to do to get ready for specific grenades, the teammates, and the type of competition that he's playing against? Is he going to fall back on his reactive aiming ability? Because at this level, it's not that everyone has quite this much skill, but a lot of people do, okay? When we look at Twist, I'd say, is the perfect example of somebody who has an overflow of mechanical ability to the point that is absolutely disgusting on this level for sure. I mean, if you know Twist, you know what he can do. He really is the cream of the crop. And in some situations where he can make a misplay or something, his aim can bail him out because it's so fucking good. His mechanical ability is unreal, right? But a player like Twist is also a very smart player, knows how to play within the round, knows what his role is. He's a championship winning player. And there are, again, other players who have this level of skills. Take Scream, for example, okay? As we move now into the French scene and the French storyline of Kyojin, a player who was almost crippled by his ability to hit incredible shots, that his style of one-tapping ended up holding him back because the AK, for example, is inherently flawed in that even if you are 100% accurate, you're only going to hit the shot 70% of the time at certain distances, right? Like from long doors to pit on dust 2, your accuracy with an AK for your first shot accuracy is something disgustingly low, like 73%. So if you try to make this a part of your style, it's just not going to work. You have to spray in this game, and you can't just go for style points all the time. I mean, rounds will be lost, games will be lost. And the other thing is that this is something that that I think about sometimes with players of this skill. Like, I've always wanted to believe that a huge reason that, you know, maybe Scream lacked in the clutch and positionally a little bit more is because if he's always either focused really heavily on his mechanics and his aim, or he's always been very gifted with his mechanics and his aim, well, then you might naturally play worse angles, take bad fights. And this is how you become like a noob stomper, right? Because versus people who miss, you still get a second life. Versus a player who has good enough aim and really good positioning or really good utility usage, then you don't get a chance to shoot back. You're blind. You're getting shot on the side. You're getting baited all the time. The reactive stuff won't work. And I think sometimes for some players, they actually have a harder time learning because they're so gifted in this way, mechanically, that they don't learn how to actually take good fights. They can make good fights out of bad fights. But at the top level, it doesn't work. So what can happen with Kyojin is get into a situation where he has to like, you know, learn some stuff, which is normal. Let's look at Masuda. I mean, if we want to talk about players who didn't have a really great time coming on to Vitality in their inaugural matches, of course, you know, Masuda kind of takes the cake. And Masuda, since then, has had his career best performance versus Astralis on Vertigo on Mirage at DreamHack Masters, I believe, and has become more like consistently core player of this team. So we got to give him some slack. And to be honest, Kyojin, if he's coming into anchor bomb sites with RpK, it's not, I mean, if there was any position I feel like I would like to take on, I feel like it would be RpK's almost. No, be like a long anchor, be an upper anchor on Nuke or something like that. Really just focus down on your aim, get your 2 kills, you win the round. Get 1.5, you've done pretty good. That's like, you know, one of the more fun things, but it's still obviously not easy. And you've got, you know, complexity and friggin' Blame F executes coming at you with lurks involved and everything. And then there's also the T side, which is a whole other can of worms. That T side is, of course, going to be harder to find the chemistry in, because on CT side, you go to your spot, you have an area, you have like a zone that you're in control of, and then, you know, you learn your rotations from your teammates when they die and whatever. On T side, things are a lot more fluid. Like, there's no real place to call home as much in the middle of rounds when you need to execute your spacing, the way you take control. There's so many more times where you have to be able to understand where the correct decision is, and that's where it can be uncomfortable, and that's where, you know, the chemistry can really fall apart, or the chemistry shows if you played together for a long time. So we watched this demo today. I want to be a bit more, you know, it's kind of like an unlucky or bad, because clearly, you know, nerves, discomfort, all this stuff are involved. You know, look at Bit on Navi. Look how far he's come, right? We want to be hopeful that this doesn't hold up, but we want to look at this and wonder and see if it was just, you know, a fluff spray here or there, or positional errors or something like that. We do have some context when we go into this game with Kyojin. We actually watched an RpK demo on Upper to explain and look at how Team Liquid found a way to absolutely destroy RpK in his position on the back of the site, constantly throwing mollies and nades at it. And what I'm kind of curious about is, are we going to see some similar moves from Kyojin, or how he's going to play this part of the map? And has anything changed? I actually hear immediately playing on top of the site on the first round of the game. Oh my god. I am fucking up here. Okay, first round, already made a mistake. Let me just go right back to that part. Top of the hut is a really strong position, especially on rounds that people are low on grenades. And here, Poison just clears him. He misses a few bullets. No big deal. If you want to be in the mind of Kyojin, put yourself in the mind of anybody who is playing on a new team or at a new level. All of a sudden, you're like, you just pray to the CS gods. I hope I hit my shot. That's pretty much the only conversation you have with yourself. There's not much that goes into knowing how to, how to hit a shot from the top of the hut. He knows how to do that. That's why he's on the team now. It's just, is he going to be a bit nervous? Is he going to be lucky enough to get that first bullet in? Or what will happen? Okay, so Kyojin 1280 by 960. I think some high video settings. I'll take a look after the game. And here, smoking Squeaky quite early. This supports Masuda. So when we talk about building connections, I talk about this on Overpass. But, you know, whoever you're playing with, you've got to have a strong connection with them in some way, right? Like if you're playing Mirage A site, you've got to have an ability to know what your teammate's watching and how to play off of them in some way. Here, you know, Kyojin hold down hut so Masuda doesn't have to watch it so that they can rotate in a certain way. And when I'm going to be watching this demo, I'm going to be watching, okay, is he maintaining connections with his teammates enough? Are there any gaps? And where does the discomfort come from? All right. Chance to pull back the eco. I'm just going to take a look. 3v3 in this situation. And Kyojin, we already saw from this frag highlight earlier on the YouTube video, he's got unreal aim. But yeah, again, it's not everything. So to me, was RpK the problem with Vitality? I think RpK was lacking a little bit, but I also think that they scapegoated RpK for their issues, which are much bigger, in my opinion. There seems to be systematic problems. If you have a situation where a player like Zywoo can't frag, or the whole team is losing games they shouldn't be, or struggling versus a team like 9Z, for example, which, you know, credit to 9Z for playing extremely well, but that's apples and oranges, right? The Vitality were just about #1 team of 2020. In my opinion, I had them #1, if not for the, you know, lack of lands at the beginning of the year. They were straight up insane, and they have had quite a fall from grace in 2021, and it just seems insane. Well, one of the predictions that I was completely wrong about, that I have to take on the chin, is that I thought that the Vitality system would survive its players. I didn't think Zywoo would somehow become inconsistent, but I didn't think that that Vitality, who looked so good in 2020, were going to somehow just completely fall apart, to the point that Apex, you know, he takes a break from the team, talks about how he appears to be, you know, an emotional player on the cams, and is aware of that, and, like, you know, and how he thinks about it, but that's who he is, and then says, I'm going to take a break. And that break is supposed to be for 2 events long, maybe even longer. And what ends up happening, he just comes back onto the team. To me, that was a horrible sign. What is that? If we're going to take a break and announce that, that should be taken seriously. I mean, that time should be gifted to Apex. Probably a good thing for the team. And yeah, it's already not a great situation that he's taking a break, but for them to cancel on it, just get him back in for the next tournament immediately. I mean, I feel like that is a really weird thing to get that far. So something bigger than that, I think, was happening than just RpK's stats coming down a little bit, in my opinion. But just like Bit to Navi, I can see Kyojin being looked at as a long-term solution, right? Or a long-term bet, at least. That, okay, we could probably upgrade here from RpK. He's not like the most cerebral player. He just plays really well. I've heard he's a great teammate, and he knows his spots, and he knows the teams that he's playing against. And of course, it's a long history of being one of the strongest players of all time, especially in Source. So, you know, there's a lot of players you want, a lot of reasons you want a player like that on your team. But yeah, the inconsistency stat-wise was there, and you have a situation where you don't want to, you don't want to let Kyojin go to another team. You see him, he gets cleared from his, the apparent alleged VAC bans or whatever in history. And you don't want to see him go to another team, and you want to think of the longevity of the roster. And that's where I think of Bit as well, kind of similarly. Okay, there's a really nice frag from Kyojin. Onto the lurk from JKS. As we can see, 2 players coming back in a mini. That's pretty much all they're going to need from him. So it's yeah. When you think of Kyojin and RpK, you don't think of the same player at all. But the Kyojin is apparently an anchor anyway, so role wise it probably works out. Here he gets enough damage in for him to basically win the round for his team. A great round from Kyojin here on this first rifle. All good. Not a lot of pressure here on Squeaky. And this was another spot that RpK played a lot, on top of the silo, watching into huts. It's not like there's a whole lot of room for versatility in this position. Smoke's a little bit rough, of course. It's important to line everything up. The problem with the Squeaky, it's such a tenuous position, right? If you don't have your Squeaky smoke, then you're like, Masuda's in danger. He can't actually rotate easily to go mini to watch outside to spam the cross. He can't safely just come around it to play off this. He's kind of stuck on either side of the smoke. If the smoke, if the door smoke isn't there, it puts the CTs in a real problem. But as we can see, Complexity are focusing more on outside, but this can have an effect on the way Masuda plays the round, because he's scared to go and try to assist inside of mini because of the way that this is down. See, he's got his full attention on Squeaky, so the smoke already causes a problem potentially for Vitality. But of course he knows he missed it. It won't happen again. It's just something to consider. That again, it's just about the connection that you have with your Squeaky player, especially because your upper anchor behind the silo, he's watching about 30 degrees of angles. He's sitting on the back of the site watching hut on the escape. He might be turning his attention to Squeaky if his Squeaky player dies. But Masuda, he's got to watch for the mini drop. If there's a gap in vision outside, he's got to spam the outside cross if he needs to. He's got to make sure he can turn around and watch for a Squeaky lurk if he needs to. There's a lot more danger for your mini player than there is for your upper anchor in terms of how many favored fights that he can take in a round, and how many ways he can get lurked upon. So, all right, what's the idea here? Actually, just gonna hard rotate. 10 seconds left. This is so strange. Whoa, they just left and wait. What? Are we downstairs? Okay, are we on the? Okay, I'm so confused just because of this radar, but I guess. Okay, all right. I think. Wait. I'm so confused right now. Like, is everyone down here? Okay, all right. Yes, okay, it is. Okay. Okay, we end up losing the duel. Sorry. The minimap always fucks me up. I know it's only showing everybody on the same floor, but I wasn't sure if that was actually working properly. I was really, really confused. Okay, so they come through, they lose. That's fine. The retake, they go through control. They had the info, they rotated. I was like wondering if they were splitting upstairs at the same time that he was dropping, but nobody was coming out. And here we're looking for that same JKS lurk from Kyojin. And I mean, so far, there's not been any, full upstairs hits they had to worry about. The lurks came out. Okay, the pistol round, he missed a couple of shots, but, the one full rifle round when it came to holding a spot, it looked fine. And there, we've got a lineup. Okay, so we got a lineup for here. He doesn't have a lineup for when he's on the top of the site. That's something that you should probably make sure to figure out. But apart from that, he's all good. And I think, I'm not sure where Masuda goes if they're coming out of hut in this situation. But Squeaky is a little bit open. Rush takes him out, and Shox dies outside. And it looks like... let me go back and see what happened to Masuda this round. I'm really curious, actually. So we can add some context to what happens here on the upstairs hit. Maybe it's a situation where Complexity know what they're doing and they get Masuda to rotate when he actually doesn't want to. I'm not sure if he dropped Ven in this situation or if he just crossed a mini. The resmoke comes down, and I guess he's expecting the cross smokes. They're doing diagonal cross smokes outside, so he's here to apply pressure, and then they pull his attention just far enough, and then he might get smoked out mini here. Oh, okay, Rush just... Okay. Wow, that's insane. Rush just came through the mini smoke. There was really no chance. I mean, it's a good clear from Rush. They had to find Kyojin. They didn't see him backside, so they knew he was around here somewhere. And they eventually spotted him out. And I think there's a higher chance on the CT side for either CT holding the site almost site agnostic to get a kill if your teammate is alive. When you're alone, I feel like your odds of actually just getting one kill drop drastically because of the amount of spots that get compromised by the T's, right? If you have two CTs alive, then you cover so much area, you deny so much information that when a T comes out into a site, you can be in multiple positions, and this gives you the opportunity to crossfire, to bait setup and shoot, etc. If one of your teammates dies in a situation like that, like Masuda, someone just runs through smoke and kills him, then, you know, Kyojin's obviously in an awful position. He knows he's going to at max get one kill if he can, and has to get really lucky on the timing, but Rush was very, very aware of how he could end up playing that. Up here is not a super awesome spot in my opinion, but if they don't know that you're going to be there, it can be nice to dodge flashes and also just take a fight like one opening duel versus Squeaky or something. Top of the silo again. And so far, Complexity have found ways, you know, around fighting Kyojin almost. And there's always the pressure of him thinking like, oh, you know, I would push here normally. Can I push? Oh, can I take this peak? Should I take this peak? Am I really putting people in jeopardy? And as, of course, he gets more comfortable, he's gonna know where and when he should and feel like to take the risks. And it's on Vitaly to... It's also on Vitaly to kind of give him enough leash to make plays so that he can be comfortable, be himself, while also still, you know, having some discipline, not just taking every single duel. So there's another situation. He doesn't get the kill. Someone snags it from him on that rotation downstairs. But it's all good. A little bit claustrophobic in this position. So I think it's much better, of course. Kyojin just takes over Hut. Just opens up angles for Masuda. Doesn't overlap with his position. And now the standoff. But the CTs are winning. I'm going to skip forward. Not a pressured situation for anybody left over. And I think when the game is very CT-sided is in the 5v4, in the 5v5 on most maps. Things really fall apart when you drop one player or even go 4v4 on some maps. The whole half of the whole map can become T-sided. But in a situation like that, you got to think, okay, Vitaly are going to close this out for sure. Looks like pressure on ramp is coming. Not a fun gun to have to rotate around with, but looks like just Glocks on the board for Complexity, and he'll have nothing to do. Round 10, 5 left, holding on to the MP9. Enough money to upgrade if he needed to. And Shocks comes through with a lobby push. This is, or like pushing ramp. This is interesting. I wonder if it baited... He tried to bait them forward. Apex doubling up with him. And he lets JKS go. This is nicely done. He kind of realizes that the threat could double back. But the round is still in jeopardy. It's kind of a nice post-plant setup. As long as someone on ramp and there's no one flanking ramp and they're willing to, you know, take this risk. And we've got Zaiwu dropping him the AWP. But obviously you got to break these. Yeah, there's no free kills here. And now suddenly it gets very nerve-wracking. You're at the T's mercy since they're not out in open positions. You had to break the class. Both players were heard. Not a lot you can do. Okay, let's see if the upper exec comes. And if Masuda dies first or not in this position. But there's actually no exec at all. Apex, in fact, goes down. Okay, so you've got a replay almost of something that happened before. Outside, somewhat compromised. Masuda might be the first fight. And yeah, okay. I don't even know if Heaven is being watched here. It looks like not. So there's going to be the chance to wrap, and now Kyojin's in a very precarious spot. These spots are actually horrible for defending against heaven. But yeah, look at they're both not communicating properly actually. Okay, so Masuda says he's watching it. This is much better. But yeah, that's not a great situation. So they look very, very uncomfortable in that spot, and it's because they got the memo, I guess, that it could be heaven really late. And what should have happened there probably is that if they understood that heaven was a threat that quickly, then they could have grouped up for a lobby crunch together, pushed the one guy that was holding in lobby if they knew that many people were outside. But instead, it felt like they were not communicating there for a second, and then they... Don't tell me it's his real crosshair. What am I looking at? What the hell? Is this real life, man? Okay. Maybe a tech pause for this crosshair. Apex lost 1 in-ears. Okay, what? We're just falling to his brain? One time, Shocks at a LAN had his in-ear got stuck in his ear to the point that they actually had to like medically tweeze it out. They had to pull it out to get it out of his ear because it jammed so deep into his ear. They had to call a tech pause for that. They had to... You can look up this footage. It was a giant tech pause at a LAN a long time ago in CSGO. And they had to pull something. They had to pull an earbud out of his ear because it was jammed in from him pushing it in too much. Sorry to make everybody uncomfortable who's watching this at home. GG no re. Okay. I guess the one thing about, you know, if you have Kyojin and Masuda playing a site together, who's taking the lead, you know? I don't know how much... we have no idea how much leadership Masuda has, how comfortable he is. He's obviously the player who has more experience right now than Kyojin, but also still kind of fresh blood. Is it a situation where Masuda and him doesn't feel comfortable telling Kyojin what he needs from him and how to play off of him? Because it felt like they were letting their crosshairs do the talking on that last round. Almost the only real kind of sign to me so far that they look a little bit uncomfortable, apart from some of the nades that got missed from Kyojin, a little bit of nervousness there. But hey, it looks like the aim is still pretty good. A lot of floating around, and again, we're worried about heaven. Oh, he actually grabs both kills. Okay, well done. The last of 2 rounds. Another pistoling round here for complexity. And another position here early on top of the site. With, it looks like a squeaky bus coming. They're baiting out a lot of Kyojins. Precious ammo here. He gets ass blasted from JKS on the top of the site. Another situation where they both go down upper. And JKS had a hell of a map, but yeah, there's been a few situations where upper failures have absolutely cost vitality rounds. Another situation where they're very weird positions. Do they have someone else top upper or? Yeah, this is okay. Yeah, everyone's just kind of running around, and I think Kyojin. Okay, he's got full nades in this position. They're looking to rotate lower. No one holding for the lurk downstairs. And now we're on with the full nades. Look at here, we're gonna go for the... That spam doesn't work unless you're jumped up on the sink. And you shoot over top of the door. Nade to dark, he also... Okay, that player is dead, and he's got a smoke and a flash for the bomb as well. That's a round 1. Nicely done. And we move on to the second half. And I want to watch the whole thing. I want to see what T-side looks like. To see kind of how Kyojin fit in. And I mean, this is where I expected to see a lot of the awkwardness that again, I want to be, you know, I want to be kind of like generous about the way that we look at this, because it's, again, first match with a big team, and T-side Nuke is not easy to play in with a new team, of course. And just understanding exactly where you feel like it's his first time playing complexity, you know, he's got a lot to think about all the time. And here his job was just to stop lurkers downstairs. But Rush is patient enough. Everyone gets the kills. There's not really much room for him. This is not his fault at all. As Lurk is almost a lost cause if people don't help him out with the kills there. So I'm going to skip through the Glock eco, because who gives a shit about Glocks? Config this past week has had unreal stats in almost all of his games. I mean, Config's a player who... I think Config is, on his best days, as good as Simple. It's just not... he's just not always... Like, he's like the random player who I think should have been top 20 last year, who has this peak that is like... like, in terms of riflers, like, he can be a top 1 rifler. He's just not got that consistency. But this past week, he's been touching that peak a lot. It's insane. Yeah. Unreal stats. Really unreal stats for Config. I think he's Complexity are in a very good situation with him right now. All right, so here, yeah, RpK is... I think I was trying to figure out where RpK was sitting on the T-sides, and I theorized that he would be, you know, the anti-eco kind of upper... sorry, the anti-eco lobby holder, flank the lurk holder or whatever. So I think we'll see probably more of that in this round as well. He puts it on himself to help with that upstairs take. You know, he doesn't bait, doesn't wait behind the smoke, runs through it, dies for it. And again, in terms of future potential, does RpK have as good aim as Kyojin? No. Will that aim matter right now? No, right. Of course, RpK is going to be a better player than him right away, because RpK has that experience. He's going to have that calmness. He's going to know how to play more situations. He's going to be better on the T sides. He doesn't have to learn every map. You know, he's not a question mark when it comes to lands, all that stuff. But in the long term, you see this, you know, very high mechanical skill ceiling for a Kyojin. The guy, people have been talking about it for a long time. And again, you don't want to let him go to another team. These are all things that are going to come into consideration when you think about, you know, should you replace the Tonk or not? For me, the only thing for me is that if I saw a player this good, my main consideration would be like, how good of a teammate is he? What's his communication like? Because like, apart from that, you can see like he's got the raw skills. Le Tonk. Well, job done. Entryman doesn't die. No need for him to refrag. And we're looking at his position. He's kind of third in when everything's going right and they have all the nades and everything. It looks like in that situation, he's coming in kind of third here. And ramp is actually totally open in this position. And it's also where Vitality want to go. And see the bumper cars, you know what I'm saying? This is the kind of thing that you see when there's a lack of chemistry. Or people are like, what angle are we holding here? Where are we going? Are we stopping? Are we starting? Well, what's the next decision to come out of my IGL's mouth? Like, these are all things that are really, really hard to kind of just pretend like you know. Or like, are just going to have a natural feel for. So, some of the awkwardness we're seeing here. You know, try to think back to a player who's all... Try to think back to RpK and like... You know, how few of these angles, you know, RpK would actually switch back between. Or I was talking about Device earlier. Think about how much calmness Device has. You know, that comes with experience and talent and everything, but you know, you can't really just fake it, right? There's always going to be a gestation period. Another round over. Kyojin isn't even needed. Sends off a nice dink to his teammates. You can see the angle clearing. He's almost always going headshot at headshot level, much like a twist. JKS blast him. There, he doesn't go for the peak. Just thinking about his next step and assuming there'd be some, you know, some level of respect. If there's someone downstairs, he's just going to be sitting there waiting. And sometimes you're going to be right about that, sometimes you're not, right? And yeah, his job here, you don't want to, sometimes you don't want to overcrowd the lobby, because if CTs do a lobby crunch with squeaky pressure, hut pressure, and a ramp push, and you have like 3 players, you actually have a chance to lose the whole round to just pistols if 1 kill goes south, because you're very cramped inside the lobby, and they're actually performing a split on you. Like think about lobby as like a really small bomb site that has 3 choke points. Like if you were in that site, sometimes you would think about, you'd rather play a retake on that side or just keep 1 person far back, so you're actually not a liability. So it looks like Kyojin's job on this T side is simply just to probably turn into the, you know, to catch that vent rotation, to put some pressure on Squeaky, and on anti-ecos to catch and see if they push into hut, and or push into lobby from Squeaky hut or ramp. But in this spot, not a lot of faith in the 2vx. But it's him and Masuda sight buddies again. Going for it. Clearing angles like a beast. But we see also the amount of times, when I talk about playing reactively, we see the amount of times that Kyojin looks like he's super sharp, but he's just always just getting caught off guard, right? Always aiming in the wrong spot. Because it's a roulette, you never know. Whereas it might be easy to like backwards rationalize, oh, this player is really good because they were aiming in the right spot. But oftentimes you'll see with someone who's more comfortable that will be just holding the right angle. You know, the kitschy thing to say is it looks like they're cheating, right? Because their game sense is so good, or because like they understand the spots that people will be in at certain timings or whatever. But that is the quality of a pro that makes a difference. That's why aim is not everything in this game. And sometimes, yeah, I think that's Device is, I think, the best example of that. Like, whereas mechanical skill ceiling, it's like super high. Of course, it is really high. He has great aim, but it's not the absolute highlight of his play. It's the, you know, his positioning. So, it's again, I mean, we're getting a lot of situations where he's in the limelight for playing. He's in the limelight for coming in last, or, you know, not taking opening duels. But clearly now, even struggling to win fights, you can tell the nervousness is there, definitely. He was half ready for that fight, but he, you know, he's like, will Rush even beat me right here? Should I reach out for that molly again? Oh, now he's ripping. Okay. That was unreal, actually. Rush gets his revenge. You see, of course, how nasty it can be on the other end of that crosshair. Everyone's aim is so good. In what could be the last round of the game. Wow, we are swinging. Rifles outside looking for that opera. I think they actually had 2 to trade there. Yeah. And to me, I mean, I think the easy thing to say when I look at this is that Kyojin, so like on this T side, he looks like he's waiting for something to happen. So he clearly is eager to be a part of the round, but doesn't know how to take control of it. Doesn't seem very useful in the mid rounds right now. And I totally understand that, you know, the T side is going to be much harder than the CT side in this regard. And it'll be cool to, you know, revisit a demo when, of course, he has a better game or something like that, and we can kind of draw a comparison to what we saw here. But yeah, I hope I'm not I hope I'm allowed to say it feels like he was, you could see the nervousness in this game. I think it was represented well in the stats. And yeah, in terms of the higher level criticisms, just like kind of like when I look at it, generally speaking, it looks like he's struggling to find himself a little bit on the T side. He's missing some grenades on the CT side. Him and Masuda didn't really look like they had a lot of. They were playing the site like they were random matchmaking teammates, as opposed to teammates in Discord. You know what I'm saying? Where it felt like they weren't communicating all the time, and that they didn't know exactly what spots they wanted to be in. And if Kyojin got rocked by a flash, and then suddenly the setup was not what they talked about out of spawn, then they had no way of kind of rebuilding there. There's a run round where it looked like they should have pushed into hut, would have been a natural thing to do on the CT side when outside controls getting taken, but they were too scared to do it quickly enough. So yeah, there was just a lot of rounds where it generally felt like it was too much of a reactive playstyle, and there wasn't much leadership. It seemed like from Masuda, and again, this is some of the stuff is conjecture, but with time, I'm sure it'll change. So obviously 10 times the player I'll ever be, but we'll see how Kyojin develops as a player now on Vitality, that they're probably putting a lot of pressure on him to be the hope of, because he's because they're going through quite a big slump and they need something to change. But it's very hard to see from the outside what the hell happened, because they looked like such a good team last year. So yeah, I hope that was a good one. I hope you enjoyed that, and that's it. Kyojin's debut.